Hi, I'm Ann Asprodites. I own Asprodites Reps, and I'm so glad you guys are here because this is a conversation. It's truly a conversation about best practices. Understanding that these can't be mandated. We can talk about what will help us make the best product. We are all on the same side of the volleyball net, and we all have issues that together we can resolve. That said, I'm going to ask you all to say hi and introduce yourself and say how you fit into this puzzle of a work.
Sure, I'm John Gilliland. I'm executive producer and partner at Lucky 21. I'm also partner at Lucky Post. So I have, a traditional commercial production company and then also a commercially focused post house.
I'm Jack Reed of Jack Reed Reps. A rep works in the world of connecting agency producers with creative production partners in order to accomplish a production goal. So I deal mostly with agency producers, sometimes with agency creatives, and selecting potential production partners, which I send samples of their work, and when we're lucky and it hits, they bid that particular solution, and when we're really lucky, we get awarded the job.
When you're that good.
When you're that good.
When you're that good.
I'm Kathleen Torres. I'm an agency producer. I've been so for 20-ish years, 20-some years, working agency and client direct. And I get to bring all these creative people together.
I'm Michael Yessian from Yessian Music, and I am head of production and owner. We have studios in New York, Detroit, LA, and Hamburg, Germany, creating music, sound, licensing, and mix, and I get to work with lots of these fabulous people.
I'm Kat Kornegay. I'm an account director at Johnson & Sekin, and my focus is more on the brand strategy planning side for my clients, but I do have a heavy hand in the production side. So when, it's a lot of money my clients are spending most times or not, just being present and contributing to the project and helping everything to be successful. That's my role.
My name is Michael Koerbel. I'm a comedy commercial director. Kind of run the gamut of everything from celebrity talent to automotive. But for me, I get to interact with a lot of the people at this table, honestly, at different parts in the process. And as you were saying, if you make it all the way to the point where you get a chance to actually have fun and do it, all of it's a great experience. So,
I'm Robert Kirkpatrick. I'm the owner of Lava Studio. We are a design-based animation and production company. We have creative offices in New York and Miami.
I'm Greg Christensen. I'm a writer and creative director at the Richards Group, and that means that I spend my days and weeks coming up with really bad, embarrassing, humiliating ideas, and then every once in a while we get one that we think, oh, there actually might be something here, and then the clients hopefully agree, and then we all get to work together to give it some life.
I'm Byron Fitz, executive producer of The Department, and we are a production company that sources director talent for specific creative as it's needed. And I've come from a production background, spent a couple of years as an agency producer, little sadomasochistic and had to come back to production. But no, I've been part of this industry for a while, and I still enjoy the beatdown.
So you guys, thank you so much for coming here, and thank you to Thought Culture, who is recording this, who's shooting this, and that's yay for them. Thank you. So you guys, the first idea that I had to discuss was our treatments, and from the production side. From the agency side, what does the agency want in a treatment? From production side, what does the production company want back? Specifically when you don't get the award, after you've put in the incredible amount of time and sweat equity and creativity. So whoever wants to take that from there, any thoughts? John?
I'm always first, it's good.
That never happens to John, where they don't get it.
From production company side, it's a necessary, absolutely required part of the process on pretty much every single job. Even when they say they don't want a treatment, you got to do a treatment. Because if you don't do it, then they're just going to say, well, somebody else gave us one and we like it, so we're going to give them the job. So you never want to give anybody a excuse to not hire you. So, the treatment is, for directors, there's sort of 2 points of contact with the agency to get across their viewpoint, and that's the initial call and then their treatment. And that's really the way you communicate how you're going to approach the job. So it's incredibly important, and it's cannot be undervalued, but it has to be looked at as it's part of the process. It is a necessary part of the process. At this point, we can lament the days when we didn't have to do that stuff, but those days are long gone. So, and if you're not doing it at a high level, it's going to be hard to compete because people are doing amazing, really incredible treatments at this point, and there's a cost to it. There's a time and effort, but that's just the price of being in this business right now. So
I guess I'm going to throw this into the agency peeps. What do you guys want from the treatment? What are you looking for?
One thing I'll point out, to John's point, that we lament, or you were saying that you lament the days when, you didn't have to do them. More and more, our clients want to see the treatments.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the clients don't necessarily make the decision based on the treatments. They'll almost 100% of the time go with our agency recommend, but they want to see what we're seeing, and they want to know why we like a certain director, and we'll let them know. Look on page 15 how he or she talks about the casting. Look on page 27 about how he or she has plussed the boards. For me as a creative, there are 3 things that I judge a director on. It's a reel, it's a phone call, and it's the treatment. And usually the treatment is the thing that carries the most weight. Your reel kind of gets you into the door and lets us say, okay, you're interested, you're right for the job, this is someone that we think would be great. The phone call is just sometimes more of a formality, but sometimes lets us know, okay, well, we kind of like working with this person. But the treatment, for me, is what lets me look at a director and say, okay, he or she really gets it. And most of the time, it's because they've given me something back that I wasn't expecting. If they just kind of regurgitate what I've already given them and put pictures to it, that hasn't added anything. If they go too far, then we might think, well, they might not be the right one. But if they give me something back where I think, oh, I hadn't thought of that, then you're in a pretty
I always
good
call it,
place.
what's the hook? You're always looking for the hook. What's the thing that's going to separate?
And I think as an account person, our role is to help with that hook, right? So being involved, we don't necessarily, we're not on every single call, but if I can help you guys with a few nuggets of how the client thinks and kind of the why behind everything that we're doing, that just helps you guys with the treatment. So we're not doing any back and forth, or when we go in, we're all just in such unison that our client goes, that's it, right? Because the creative, just to add to, your 3 things, the 4th thing for me is the relationship. So that's my job with the client. I'm kind of your hype man, right? So I'm like, oh, we got the best director. It's going to be so great. Or, it's just going to be great, great, great. And, being on those calls, I get a sense of the relationship, the personality. So making sure, like, when you are on set, you're going to mesh with my client. And it's going to, by the end of it, we're all going to be hugging, right? That's going to be the glory day. But, just understanding like why the brand is doing what it's doing, not that it's just doing a spot or it needs some content, but just feeding you guys that stuff. I should know the brand back and forth, and I could speak for hours and hours upon it. So take that, put that in your treatment, and then help bring that vision to life.
I mean, that's what I always want, as much background, like how did we get to this point? Like, what was the creative brief? Like, what is it that we're, what's the information from the client, so that, the more information that we have, the more we can we can tailor the message and the creative to match that.
And the
Because-
more of a connection you have with that brand, or even doing some research on the client, if you've worked with them in the past in some capacity, or, a good example is we have a client that does a lot of community initiatives, and one of the things we were shooting was a military-focused series of content videos. And the directors, we looked at a couple, and the one that we selected, we found out that his dad was a retired Air Force veteran, and so there was a little bit of, okay, you get it, and you're gonna have empathy.
Use everything.
Just pull out all the stops. So, and that's what, just keep asking, keep digging, and, at our agency, we kind of do the digging for you, and we'll say, hey, we know there's a connection here, and, so we're trying to help that, because we want to make it so great for you guys and for our client.
Well, I saw, just real quick, more on the agency POV, is I've seen jobs win and lose based on treatments. Obviously, even when your creatives are going, nope, he's our guy, a treatment comes in, it's better. But as a producer, I skim through them, not more creatively, but more of, what are you promising my creatives that we can't afford? So it's, making sure that everything, that budget aligns with his thought, because sometimes there's this great, wonderful thought in the treatment that there's no way in heck we can actually film it on our budget. Or there is a way that we can figure out how to do it. But just as long as I understand going in what we're promising our client and our creative team that we're going to do, and it's achievable. That's important.
One of the things I was just going to add when you were talking about the three different things, I think for a director, as you're preparing to do a treatment, that call is actually probably the most singular valuable thing for me, because it gives me a chance to hear the copywriter read it, to have the creative director pitch the idea. That allows me, if I'm listening, and I think every director, when you're on one of those calls, your main job is to listen, and you regurgitate back a little bit, but the main thing is, what is the tone? What is the vibe? What is their goal? And sometimes they'll even say, this is the issue we've been having with the client, and this is the piece that's going to be the solution. And so all those little bits and pieces, I then can put into a treatment. And so I think it's the first opportunity to completely align. I hope by the time I send you the treatment after we've had that call, I'm already pretty good, because we already had that conversation, relationships established, and I now know exactly what you need, or at least am in the ballpark. So just wanted to add that.
I'm curious to know, how often do you expect to have a follow-up call?
I was just
Because
about to ask that,
sometimes
yeah.
Like after the treatment?
after the
Yeah.
treatment, you get the treatment, and then you want to have a
Yeah.
follow-up
Yeah.
call to talk about it.
As a director, I'm going to try and talk to you guys as many times as possible, right? Having the follow-up call, I think, is really helpful, because there are times where we've gotten feedback like, oh, well, we didn't get the job because of X, Y, Z. And I'm like, oh, if I could just get on the call, I could be like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it like this. I think it's always helpful. If nothing else, it just gives another opportunity to chat through it. And, but from your perspective, does it feel like extra work if you've already kind of seen all the treatments and you have your pick anyway?
Honestly, it depends. It varies job to job.
Okay.
There are times where we go in, and this could be based on history, this could be based on what we know we have to do. There are times where we go in thinking, we know it's going to be this director, or we're very sure it's going to be this director, and we're not so sure about these other two. And then another director might come in. What you said, you can win or lose on a treatment. I've seen multiple times, me and other teams, where they've gone in saying, we're not really going to go with this director. And then all of a sudden they get a treatment and they think, oh, wait, no, this is the director.
Right.
And so it varies. I think that sometimes we get maybe two treatments that are so similar, we think, well, let's probe a little bit more to see, what's there, help us make a decision. Sometimes a director that we really want to work with just doesn't get it, and we'll ask about it. Sometimes a director, there are all kinds of reasons. I'm always open to it. I think more communication early on is always going to be to everyone's benefit.
I would love to know from production company and director standpoint, because this has happened to me a lot, where we'll read something in someone's treatment that there's this one little thought that was brilliant, but we're still going to go with the other guy but can we take your thought? And I'm always like, this happened, actually, the job that you and I shot with, and I called the production company and said, can you ask the director what her thoughts would be if we did this? And of course she was gracious and said, yes, whatever. But it's, that thought is just.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's.
But do y'all
a
see
great
that a lot?
courtesy.
It's like, I did that job and that was my thought.
We always think that. Every director always thinks all their ideas are being stolen. And I think these days it's, intellectual property is sort of tough.
I mean, there's
it's a
been
tough thing,
conversations
and it's
over
kinda-
copywriting,
Yeah.
treatments because of
Yeah.
that particular reason.
Right.
I've never had to do that. I've never come across it,
I think
in
most
my
people
experience.
put
but
some
I'm not
sort
to
of,
say it
something
hasn't
like it's
happened.
property or whatever, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, what, are you gonna sue? Am I gonna sue the Richards group?
Right.
Over that, like, it's, at the end of the day, we're all kind of riffing off each other and,
Right.
and if we're, as a director, if your career is based on one idea, then you have much bigger problems.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the thing
that's
too,
true.
is inherently, you have to, you do take the risk that somebody's gonna,
Yeah.
I mean, you hope they fall in love with it and then they fall in love with you. And
Right.
especially in comedy, that's how I'm communicating back to you that I am getting the idea, I'm understanding your vision, and here's the little bumps along the way that we're gonna elevate it here and here and here. And if you go with me, you get it, and if you don't, then somebody else gets to try and execute the idea I had in my treatment. So, because I've also had that before too, where I've had a creative director be like, so here's some alt lines we got from somewhere. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I will say it's a tough hit when I listen in on all the creative calls that my directors do, and obviously go over the treatment. But when you do have an idea that does take the original concept to a next level, or something that really is standing apart and plussing the idea, and you don't get the job, and then after the fact you see that idea on the finished spot, I'll just say it's very nice that you call. It's a nice
Yes.
courtesy to make that call and say, you know what, we loved your idea. We're not going to go with you, but may we? They'll
No,
always.
I've
Yeah.
run into it a ton, but you never, I have a lot of, friends who are creative directors and writers and art directors, and they're like, dude, everybody had that idea.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true.
It wasn't just your idea, but I'll call people and ask sometimes, and if
Yeah.
they didn't, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, we totally stole it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, it's not really cool, but, I don't have a lot of recourse.
Right.
But,
I mean, you're all talking about the same commercial, so
Correct.
there's
right,
bound to be
hopefully
some
people are
similarities,
ethical about
but.
it,
Well,
but
that's the thing, is to be ethical, that there's a respect
Right.
for the creative process, and that if that director gave you an idea that is gold that you're not doing with him or her, then, maybe that's some equity that director holds the next time,
True,
yeah.
that's
If
absolutely
you're, if you're
right.
coming back always with good ideas, then you're a resource, and that's, in the long game, you always want to be the one that's coming up with good ideas, and if you can consistently be that person that people are coming back to, like, I don't know, that guy's,
Right.
or woman
Yeah.
has great ideas, they're a great partner and a great resource, and that's the long-term game, not just one job.
I have a quick question just as far as, treatments are concerned, because when we do treatments, they're all full blown out treatments, but within the past year, I've had producers say, we don't need a 20-page treatment or a 30-page treatment, keep it to 2, 3, 4, 5 pages.
Impossible.
Exactly, I completely agree. And I'm kind of curious about, from an agency standpoint, I don't know if it's just a time thing or, they're not really looking for the full blown out ideas anymore, or just, all of the imagery, because I just kind of feel like whatever we can give them in a treatment, is going to help convey the director's approach.
My experience is it depends on the creative. There's some creatives that just say, just give me your written thought.
Yeah.
I don't need pretty pictures, just give me your written thought. But, there's other creatives that are blown away by this gorgeous, really detailed imagery everywhere. And it's something that even while we're shooting, they'll go back to the treatment and go, this is the framing that you put in your treatment. This is the image that we want. So for me, it really depends on the creative team that I'm working with. But I do say that, sometimes they're just so big and huge and elaborate that it's not necessary. So I mean, there's a fine, there's a good middle ground where I think they should be. A lot of times, when we're moving way faster than we used to, so we need a bid and a treatment in 2 days after the first call. So I mean, that hurts you guys on putting them together. So
I'm just curious about that because
And
happened.
I'm on a thing now, I'm like, I don't want any bullshit. Like, let's just talk about the job. We don't need to flower it up and, do all the 2 pages of, I'm so happy.
you're great.
blah, blah, blah. Like,
You creatives are so you are so genius to come up with this idea. That first couple lines, don't put that in.
One of the things that's tough is when you are told it needs to be just 3 to 5 pages, because then you're like, I'm used to building the fuller decks, right? So when you try and condense it down, I find it's actually a lot of times more difficult for me to gel it down because I'm like, oh, well, I normally talk about this and how I like to move the camera and specific to this thing. I'm like, do I even include that? And then before you know it, it does slowly balloon back out to the bigger thing. The other thing about the treatment too, that we haven't talked about is the treatment becomes the Bible. I actually don't mind doing a big treatment, especially when we win the job, because then we just pass that off to the department heads.
Right.
And suddenly, a lot of the prep is done. It's in motion.
Sure.
So there's, like you said,
true.
referencing on set,
That's right.
that happens a lot, so.
You're right.
Well, and back to the other, so sometime, if the client is gonna see the treatment, so, like you said, more and more are wanting to be involved, just because, CMOs, CXOs even are, in our experience, they are a little more hands-on these days. So if I have this full treatment that is going through every camera angle, I don't want to delete pages out of your PDF. I don't want to disrespect it in that way. So, if we know that the end result is that client's got to look at it, then we'll lose them on page 3, right? So it's kind of keep it short, keep it simple, but get the idea across. And then there will always be a time where we can blow it out a little further, but I think that's might be one of the reasons why you guys are getting more requests, and we just, as agency people, need to be more clear.
Well, it's not unheard of that we go through, we present a treatment and then turn around and have to edit it
Yes.
for it
Sure.
to be presented
Right.
to a client.
Yeah.
I think that-
and we kind of
Which
expect.
I love.
a good thing.
I love when we get the note back, like, oh, could you change this on page 7? You're like,
Yes.
yes, anything.
We were doing the job for months, and this director was like, they keep having to change the treatment. I don't think I really just walk away from the job. I'm like, no, we're getting this.
It's a good sign.
You're still being engaged,
Yeah,
so
no,
that's
we're
always
getting
a
it.
good
Like, just,
thing.
well, they want more scrap. Get it.
One thing I feel like, I think we probably all agree, we have really fun jobs. I think production is just really, really fun. And I think what a treatment does is it brings the client into the fun. I think that if it's not that interesting, if it's too antiseptic, if it's just kind of, here's a paragraph of what I envision, then it becomes just kind of like a white sheet, But I think that our clients, I don't think, comb through everything in the treatment. They like to see, what we're glomming onto. But I think it brings them into the fun and gives them a vision of, oh, this is really going to be a nice spot, or this is going to really be a nice package of spots. And so I think that that's one thing that we should be aware of as well.
I think the days of, definitely, the days of protecting clients from the process are long over. The more involved they are,
Well, we were just having
we don't
a
really have a
conversation
choice.
right before we got started about how our industry's changed so much, and it took me a while to kind of get past the fact that every client and every agency understands the process, because most agencies do, but a lot of clients don't, and it's part of our job to educate them and bring them up to speed and get them more involved earlier, just so we can all be on the same page.
And that's really, for me, I feel like that's part of my job as well, right? So it's so important that I'm in on the process, or are we going to do things a little different this time, and just holding their hand. Even if they've done it a million times, sometimes whoever we're working with, it's just going to operate a little differently, and the things we need from them might be different. So, that's super critical just for the, if things go wrong, who are they going to call? Like I'm on the front lines and they're saying, what the heck, Kat? Or great job, this is awesome, pass it along, so, if they're on set or not, or if they, we're in the final edit and they're seeing everything, like, you just have to be there to hold their hands and make sure, like, the trust is there, we've got you, right?
Which is why I've always thought the account people should be on the conference call. That, to me, that's the glue. That's the connective tissue.
Oh, you need me?
Oh, good account.
You
Good, well,
Good accountant. You need me? No, just
You are the ultimate manager of expectations.
Right.
Like,
Oh my God.
like everything can rise and fall based off of you.
So you brought up something really important, and that is the turnaround time now is incredibly, has been reduced to nothingness. So what's the best way, and this is kind of a two-part question, but how can we react quickly when we don't have specs from the client, but we've got a deadline, a time deadline? So sometimes I get creative briefs with 2 words, and I'm not exaggerating, comedy dialogue.
briefs?
What can we do from the production side to help an agency that's not getting information from the client? And that goes with animation and music as well, because especially with music, I get almost no information from an agency on what kind of music style or references. So I throw that out to the table.
Yeah, I know from my end, with music and sound, there seems to be a little bit of a misfire with the communication and the involvement from our end within the production. So it's interesting hearing you guys discuss the production aspect, but the post-production side of it is just as important as the production side, because I always say, put your TV on mute, and how does it affect you? Are you still getting that same emotion without any sound, period? And I know, again, for the music and portion of this, we're always the last call, and usually our creative brief from an agency is, we want something cool.
Sorry.
But we don't have any money. But it's interesting because I always look at it as like, this is tangible, right? Like, I can sell this to you for $1. But from a creative aspect of what we do, there's not a true, it seems like it's gotten lost through the years as far as, because we used to have clients come to the session, sit in the music session, and the musicians would be coming in. And now, since everything is just so quick, and just sending files back and forth, there doesn't seem to be quite of an understanding of what we're doing on our end to achieve this masterpiece, right? And so a lot of times it's just like, just give it to me now, and here's a low ball budget for whatever it is. Of course, we're looking at it from from an angle of, we're still bringing in the musicians, we're still doing all the creation behind the scenes here, and there's a lot going on into this process, not just pushing buttons and it spits something out. How do we get involved earlier on in that process when in reality we should be, just like editorial and all post-production aspects should be just, we're just as important in that role and process, and should be called early on in that process, because we're also part of that force bringing your creative vision to life. Is it because I think there has to be a mutual respect for all aspects inside that industry. Is it an education that isn't happening, where new people are coming into agencies, getting jobs, and I'm not just talking about music, I'm talking about all aspects of production, that maybe we as seasoned industry vets aren't educating people coming into this business as far as how this works, and having that respect for all the different aspects of the production. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think we can always be educating. I think that the workforce, we at the Richards Group, we have a lot of young people who are fresh out of college or fresh out of grad school, and we put them to work.
Yeah.
And we don't often take the time to say this is the difference between online and offline editing. We don't take the time to say this is how the process works with music. So I don't have the answer, but I think that education is definitely something we can always be doing.
How much of the conversation about music goes into the initial conversations between an agency and a production company, or between, at the early stages within the agency? I mean, I'm coming from the post-production side, and I have things to say too, but, because I feel like we're not part of the process as early as we'd like to be from the agency side or from the production company side. I love it when a director says, I'm working on a treatment. I want to propose an effect. How would we do it? What would it cost? How would we achieve it? What do you think? Got any ideas? That to us is a valuable thing. But I think music is something that's kind of very abstract to most of us. And we don't, to me it's kind of magic, and I don't pretend to know what goes on. Right. And I think that's true of the work that we do as well, as whether it's animation or visual effects. A lot of people don't understand the process, and we do get information after the fact and after commitments are already made.
I think you're right. I think that a lot of, and maybe us being veterans, we get it a little better. So maybe some younger team members don't know how to look at a reel or how to judge a reel or a website or a link or music, and don't really necessarily know how to articulate it either. We know if say a creative writes or comes up with concepts and idea, they know what they want to see. So that makes it easy to talk to a director. You're going to give me what I envision. Music is kind of, nebulous. I don't know, unless they're a musician, it's harder to do. And visual effects too shies us away a little bit more, going, can this even be done? How are you going to do it? We don't really know the magic behind all of it, So I see a lot of creatives just kind of, throw up their arms, not really, because as a producer, I want them to give me specs. I want, what do you want? So I can help my vendor partners estimate it correctly or give you what you want. Yeah. And it's hard to pull that out of them because they don't really understand yet what they want. Until they see it a lot of times too.
Well, how about like with screenings at agencies, whether it be music editorial, whatever it is, coming to agencies and doing presentations and trying to educate the masses on what it is that they do and how they do it, and the process that it takes. A lot of times going into agencies, and agencies are all different across the board as far as how they approach screenings, and some agencies don't even allow screenings, which to me is mind-boggling, because isn't it all about seeing the new talent out there and learning new things? And I know we don't always have the time to attend screenings, but if you're sitting around and you do have the time, I think it's a really, really vital part of what we do as creative thinkers, and it almost seems like there should be a little bit of a mandate from the creatives and producers at agencies saying, hey, to your team, so-and-so's coming in to share some work. I think, if you have the time, you should really attend this. This is a new director that you should check out, or it's whatever it may be. It just sounds like, and also on the account side too, because I think it's also vital for the account directors to understand what goes into each process, before it becomes just about money, because it shouldn't just always be about money.
Yeah, music is, I mean, for me personally, every single project I do when I read a script, I'll reach out. I have music libraries that I've sourced from the past, and I have relationships there or whatever, and I'll try and find like that playlist of like 3 to 5 songs that I think is, and it might not even be, may not be music we would ever use. It may be a pop music song, or it may be a song about Disney princesses, or but whatever it is, it gets me, and that becomes the music that guides me through. I mean, I'll be listening to it to the moment I step on set. It becomes the mantra for it, because music, for me, I grew up with music in my house, and like my parents were musicians, and I understand how important it is. you touched on something a moment ago about almost like a language barrier. And I think that is one of the hardest things with VFX and music is it's easier to pitch an idea. It's easier to say, no, I don't like the way that phrase is, because we all kind of have had that. A lot of us haven't had the training, and it goes even beyond just education. I mean, you know, multiple years in school, learning, you know, working with composers. Like, so that's the part that I'm almost like, how do you get past the language barrier? And I feel like a lot of music houses, at least, they'll put some of their stuff in, especially adjectives, right? So it's like, what are the adjectives this spot is feeling, or what are the action verbs? And then it kind of, you know, and I have no idea how the algorithm works to make that happen. But what it does is it takes away the wall of like, you know, because everybody's like, oh, I think it should have piano. You don't know it should have piano. Right. It may not even be a piano that you're picturing in your head. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think that barrier in the language, especially even with VFX, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna put a green screen up and do a set extension. And especially on the client level, they have no idea. They're like, oh, it's gonna be a Marvel movie, okay. And so like, it's somehow finding a way to communicate that in simpler terms.
Yeah, and I know from our end, we would never expect everyone to be a musician and well seasoned, right, you know, into this crazy language that we speak behind the curtain. But I think it's up to a music house, and if they're a good music house, they're able to take those adjectives and verbs and translate it into what needs to be developed on the music end. But it starts with conversation, and communication is so key here and vital. I know, especially in our Hamburg office, in that studio, there's a lot of direct communication with the production company when it comes to music, and working hand in hand with the director through that process. It doesn't happen as much here stateside, as much as we would like that to happen, where we're included right from the start of a project. A lot of times we'll see the production treatments and we'll see there's a music section to that. And we'll take that, just like if we have a conversation with creatives or producers out on the agency side, and translate it into what we think that should mean or does mean. But again, I think it just starts with the communication of, you know, this is a project that everyone is going to be heavily invested in, no matter what the budget is, because you can't look at it as, oh, it's a small budget, let's brush this aside and think about it, you know, tomorrow. Budget doesn't matter. This is all about putting what your passion is into something and that you believe in. And so I think no matter what that means to any one company, communication is going to be key through that process.
I'm very curious, just because I have worked with foreign directors and the process that they follow, whether they're in, you know, South America coming here to work, versus how we work with, you know, where a director follows a project from the beginning all the way through the end, you know, to post, versus here how we work, where, you know, agency sources a director. Once the director shoots it, they're done. Some directors do have a little bit of input, you know, and we'll have a little bit of communication throughout the process. But creatives, once they're done, you know, take their shot spot to post and then finish everything out separate from a director. You know, I mean, I've always found that interesting, how foreign and South American directors, you know, follow projects all the way through versus how, you know, we kind of follow the process here. Is there any particular reason why it's separate the way it is? I don't mean to like
Just the way it's always been, right?
That's exactly it. You know, this is the way we've always done
It was
it.
actually, it used to be way more separate. Like now, at least half the stuff we do is turnkey. But I mean, it used to be really separated. You know?
And now we, you know, most of us want the director's involvement in the editorial process. Whether the editor likes it or not is a different story.
Most directors do like to be involved from the beginning and kind of following, you know, it through all the way to the end and influencing, you know, the post as well as effects and, you know, music. But sometimes I've just kind of seen it, you know, like, this is us and, you know, we're going to take care of it. And
I wasn't going to throw this out, but truly, I have encountered that when the director's day rate, the director's going to get another day rate on another job and can't stay through the post. So it becomes a totally financial decision. And that's what I've seen in the past.
That's
So,
definitely.
One of the things that I also, it's tough because you've invested so much time and energy as a director into it, and I may be the exception to the rule here, but like and I've had so many conversations, many times one-on-one with the creative director, like just at catering, and that's the little nugget that like, if I could just get that in the head of the editor, you may actually get your first cut you see may actually be pretty dang close to what you want. So what I always try and do is at least be involved through that first cut. And I hesitate to call it a director's cut because it's not my cut. It's the cut I know we all talked about, right? And so I've found, and with our production company, we do have a post company that runs in tandem. And so, and I've worked with many of those guys and ladies for years now. So we do have that shorthand where like, I'll have an editor that will literally call me, hey, I know you're on set right now. I'm sending you a preview. I think it works. Here's 2 options, like what should we send? And so it's having that communication, that shorthand that goes along the way. But I hate it when you just walk away or you're not invited into the edit room because you're just like, but wait a minute, for a second there, like we had this thing going and then like, it was just like, bye, okay. Like, that is weird.
You're giving up your baby.
Exactly, because there's been so much work and investment of time on the front end to just turn it over and walk away.
Yeah,
I mean, not to
you've
say
made
that-
10,000 decisions and then suddenly,
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, the problem is, the way the business is working right now is it's a lot less precious, It's like, clients are not interested in that. They want to get things done. They are demanding. Agency creatives are getting the shit beat out of them. They have so many things they're on. I mean, the people, especially the larger agencies, are just, working on so much. Anything extra isn't really possible, So it's just like, let's get it done as best we can. And, as a production company and a post-production company, we just try to be really good resources to just help them solve their problems. But it's, a lot of the, it's like, we know it's not ideal, but let's get it done and get it done well. It's just the new reality that we all have to adjust to the speed that we're working, and it's not, we don't have 2 days, we have an hour,
Well, and sometimes the spots aren't even alive for more than 48 hours. So, there's that too, that you always have to weigh in with how much we're going to do with
I've
it.
recently experienced a director coming in. He's from somewhere else. He came here to Dallas. He shot a spot for an agency, and then, as we were just saying, the editorial took place that he did not participate in. And when we saw the finished spot, it was maybe 20% of the original idea. It somewhere between the shoot ending and the airing of the spot, it changed completely. And I'm just curious, do you have like your client going, no, here's what I want, kind of after the fact, after everything has been decided?
Oh, yeah. I've had it with clients, don't go into set. That's good and bad. Sometimes, clients on set. But sometimes you get an editorial, did you shoot this? Did you shoot this? And then you're just trying to put something together that was never anyone's intention.
I've seen it happen, rarely, but one example that this is a long time ago, but we shot the spot that we wanted, and we felt really good about it. And the clients were there, and they felt really good about it. And then the client's boss, who wasn't there, and I can't even remember if this was a CMO or not, but this person saw the spot and just thought, well, this isn't the board, and just misinterpreted the storyboard, and so we had to go and change a lot of things. And our clients liked the spot, but then when their boss didn't like the spot, then we had to make some changes.
Sure.
So I've seen that happen, but
Do they pay for you to reshoot then?
that was a while. Well, we didn't even reshoot. It was just more of a re-edit. It was, we just dug back into the footage and found things that worked, and everyone was happy-ish.
That worked for this new direction. It
Yeah.
wasn't intended to
Yeah.
work that way, but, well, that could work.
Well, and another thing that can sometimes happen is if you go out and you shoot your commercial, and then in the meantime, the client's competitor all of a sudden launches a new initiative where they're touting, I don't know, something, and all of a sudden, whatever they're touting, you have to kind of answer with this spot that you've already shot. So
Right.
do you do that with a copy line? Do you do that? Do you have to go find some other footage and put that in there? Again, that's rare, but it happens. That's one of the reasons why we have such fun jobs, is because we never know what we're going to do.
Fun.
Well, especially social digital, there's so much stuff that is reactionary now. I mean, a lot of the work I do is, it's where you shoot it, and then 48 hours later, it's airing, or it's being pushed through Facebook or whatever, because it's in a response to something that happens or some meme that happened, and so it is those timelines are getting shorter, but that is the fun of it, where it's like, I mean, it's fun, but like,
There they are.
yeah.
In a sadomasochistic way.
But when you look back at it though, you're like, okay, that was fun, because we all jumped in and we did the thing, and it was great, and this is how it turned out. So
I think one of the things that unites all of us, ultimately, I think we're all problem solvers. And I think that's what makes these careers and this industry so much fun, is we're all just solving problems. Sometimes those problems come faster than we were expecting. And sometimes we're not in the mood to solve problems. But ultimately, I think that's why we're satisfied with our careers, is because we can look back and say, I solved that. Maybe not exactly the way I wanted it to, and maybe it wasn't the problem that I wanted thrown at me, but ultimately we're just solving problems.
Yeah, I have that kind of philosophy as well in the rep side. Ann can probably speak to this as well, but with my clients, if I have managed to submit a reel that got selected for that director to bid, that's a W for me. That's a win. Obviously, nobody gets paid until they get awarded, but I have to consider that a huge success. I've done my job.
I'll take it a step earlier. When you look at a storyboard or a brief or whatever, and you go, oh my God, I have this on my roster. You get an endorphin rush.
Sure.
I absolutely get that endorphin rush. Now, I haven't even put the reel together yet. It's not even submitted yet.
Right.
Hasn't even made the beginning of the short list. But that little endorphin rush
Right.
of matching.
I'm gonna knock this out of the park.
Oh God, it's fun for me.
And then you're single, then you lose the job.
Yeah.
You're right. That can happen.
So true.
Now, to that point, I have another question. Actually, is we've discussed how compressed the process can get time-wise, but more often than not these days, I'm seeing it come to the end of the process, and all that's next is the award. And that seems to take forever. And I'm curious, is it a client that's not writing off on it? Is it you've made your recommendation and they have to approve? Or, have you had that happen?
I would say 99% of the time it's the client that we're just waiting for that final, there's so much trust there. They know this is it, but, budgets are changing sometimes, and again, we're just responding to things, and sometimes that money that was allotted, it's got to shift over here for something. So 99% of the time we're just waiting on the client.
it's funny because from like production company perspective, like most of my weekends are spent on treatments, because we'll find out we're shortlisted like Thursday afternoon. We'll do the call Friday at noon, and then everybody's like, "Well, everybody have a great weekend. Hey, Mike, have fun writing." And hey, we need it by 9 a.m. Monday. And so you're just like going. I mean, it's just at this point, it's just like I just know my weekends are, doing it right.
Yeah. How did my team do?
Exactly. And but then when it comes in on Monday morning, and then I'm just like, I'm trying not even to debug my EP, but I'm like, have we heard anything? do they want me to change anything on page 7? Like, you know, and then sometimes it is, it's like a week or two. But
Right in the middle of that.
Now I
Yeah.
feel bad
Recently.
because I always try to schedule at least a weekend in between calls. I'll try to schedule it better.
no, it actually, I mean, it works because the chance of me shooting on a weekend, yeah, so it's, yeah.
And we understand. I mean, we know how demanding the clients are. I mean, we're within our own walls having to turn things around. So, you know, being just appreciative and gracious when we do have those I mean, there's so many, I'm so sorry, thank you so much. Like, just having that empathy for everybody in the process, whether, you know, it is the agency or you guys. And I think, you know, things are moving so fast. What do? We can just be nice about it, right?
Respect means so
Exactly.
much.
Which brings to,
It goes a
Professional
long way.
courtesy, just period, a lot of
which brings to another point, and that is, what do the production companies want back from the agencies when they don't get the job? Is there feedback that, and I hear this from directors with whom I work, what did they like, what did they not like? What worked, what didn't work?
What swayed the decision?
Yeah.
Why was that decision made?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and how, and of course, the agency's running as fast as they can, now they're on the project, they gotta move forward. Is that even realistic to ask for that commodity?
I just like to know that I didn't get the job.
The hardest, really,
Literally, like, just.
And there's no answer.
You wouldn't believe how many times.
No,
I
and
got-
the
it's like,
hardest
they're-
part
you're
of my
shooting that
job
Oh, I was bidding that.
is
Oh,
making
crap.
that phone call. And I make the phone call. I don't send an email, I don't send a text, I make a phone call and go, I'm sorry, because I've been courting you for a week or so.
Sure.
Because I don't know which way my creatives are gonna go. I wanna make sure everything's lined up and, you know, hopefully, but that's the worst part of my job is calling. And especially if I don't know why. I'll try to get it out of the creatives, but sometimes we're running and gunning and they just say this treatment worked. This is the treatment we like, and that's all I have to go with, so.
That's all we want. We just want to just be straight, you know?
Yeah.
Just
I'll
tell, I'm
be
a big
honest.
boy. I can take it. Just tell me what the reality, you know?
I am really glad that my producers make those calls, because I don't want to. Because we never, you know, if we're bidding, say, 3 directors, we'll always make sure we like all 3.
Right.
Because we always know that there's a chance that we might go with one. So I never like to, you know, to pad the bid at all.
Right.
But yeah, after you've had a phone call and after you've taken the time to look at the treatment and knowing, oh, wow, they did probably put in a weekend to do this treatment. Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to make that call. I think we're always pretty clear internally. We're always clear as to why we went with this director. I don't know if my producer conveys that. I know that he or she are capable of doing it, but I don't know how those phone calls go.
That's interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
It just depends on the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be something very simple. It can be, well, you know what? They had a really heavy VFX background. Makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, but,
Right.
you know, or, I mean, it doesn't have to be a long description.
Right.
Just something that goes, okay, was it something that I need to adjust on the next one? Or is it something out of my control? You know?
And that's something maybe that reps can follow up on a little bit more. Maybe I need to be, why did so-and-so not get this? And again, that one sentence, VFX background, or their art department was approached differently, or whatever. That it really is helpful for the production company to know that.
You know, just as a prank, my producer came in after we awarded one director, and one of the directors that we didn't award, we had just shot with him. And he did a really nice job, and so we bid him, but the other director came out on top. And we were at the edit suite, and our producer just came in and said, hey, he wants to jump on a call. He wants to know why I didn't get it. And we just went, we were like, I don't want, no, you do this. But it's that kind of feel, you know?
Yeah.
But we're all grown-ups, and you know you're not gonna get. In a 3-person bid, you know that 2 of them aren't gonna get it.
Yeah.
We're all grown-ups. I always feel like it's my responsibility to be gracious and make your call easy.
Yeah,
And thank you for the opportunity.
because it is an uncomfortable
It's
call.
very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even when I was a agency producer for a couple of years, just the very first job I ever had to bid, of course, was a triple bid, and we awarded one. I had to turn around and think, I've got to make a phone call, 2 phone calls that I don't want to have to make. So I picked up the phone, called each of the EPs, and I was really surprised by the response of the 2 EPs. Well, Byron, I really appreciate you calling to let us know. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I call?
Yeah.
He goes, well, you would be amazed that
Yeah.
a lot of times we don't hear that
Yeah, that's crazy.
the job has been awarded
Yeah.
somewhere else. We just kind of falls by the wayside. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
And the people who don't, I'm always amazed, it's like, I'm here.
Generally, yeah.
Or you see it airing, and you're like,
I'm going to find out.
somebody shot it.
a couple of weeks goes by,
Yeah.
and you don't hear anything. Well, you just assume you didn't get the job, but I just don't understand from as a professional courtesy why
Yeah, it's
Right.
too,
You-
it's
you
too
would
small
cruise
to be
towards
limiting.
getting
I mean,
booked.
everyone
Right.
talks.
Yeah.
And again, that boils down to the whole respect aspect, you
Right.
know, and if win or lose, it's nice hearing from someone, other than your competitor, that got the job.
I think the answer to half the things we're talking about is integrity and respect.
Absolutely.
And, those are two things that we don't see every day. And in a case where, like what you would describe, where there is a preferred, or the creatives are really leaning toward a particular director, yet you've got three entities involved. Are those three entities being treated equally? Are they getting the same information? Are they on the same timetable to produce whatever it is they're being asked for? And is there because sometimes sometimes we're told, you're a third bid, and sometimes we just sense it, and sometimes we know we have the inside track. But I don't know. Sometimes we feel like we got the brief a week after the next guy.
Well, I mean, to put it in some perspective, I mean, I don't think it's too much to ask for a follow-up on why I didn't get the job. When we're pitching business as an agency, we work our butts off to get that little document uploaded, and that's our initial presentation. And when we don't get it, like you said, we don't want to hear our competitors, see it on social media that they're now working with that brand. Like, we want feedback as well, and we're aggressive about it. We're like, hey, can you just, that was a lot of work. So I don't think it's too much to ask for partners to get that same kind of feedback, because the rest of the people in the agency are looking for it too.
I agree.
In my repertoire now.
Do any of you ever have the experience of you have a good relationship where, you've shot maybe 2, 3, 4 times with an agency, and you feel like, okay, well, we've got a thing going on, and then all of a sudden you don't get the calls anymore. Do you ever experience that? I ask
Every
because
day.
we do that. Okay.
I mean, it's just the nature of this business, things come and go.
Yeah,
And
you kind of feel like your run is gonna end
yeah,
at some point.
everything's gonna
Yeah.
end. And you're like, man, I
Yeah.
got 4 shoots out of it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I do have repeat creative directors or agencies that sometimes you don't even have to do the treatment. It's just, hey, we got this thing,
Yeah.
you're the guy, go do it. And then, sometimes it just stops. And I agree, it's like every job you're doing, I at least always treat it like it could be my last. Because
Absolutely, you have
I don't, I mean, you're hot for a second, you maybe said one thing, and so but it does happen. I think for me, that's also where a solid EP can follow up and chase that back through and at least find out, what's going on. But it does
For
happen.
the sake of change.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's just somebody at a top level switched roles at the client, and the client just kind of wants to do a clean house, and the agency doesn't want to get their house clean, so they're like, well, at least we'll clean out the director. Here's a fresh look or a fresh approach. At least that's the perspective I see in here.
I think that happens a lot more with post and music. Like, a creative team will, they'll have their editor they want to work with all the time. They have a music company they want to work with all the time. Production seems to be a little bit more, open. But I also feel that, I don't get to do my job a lot of times in prep because of the internet, I think. And back to your mentioning of screenings, it's like, I don't even get to source reels a lot of times for creatives. I'll just get, here's the boards, and here are the 3 directors we want to talk to. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to find the directors for you, and it's because we worked with them, we know they can do it, that kind of thing. So, and here's the editor we want to work with, and here's the music.
Oh my
company.
gosh.
So it's like, a lot of times when you're fast and furious, those are great, but when, you want to find and discover, I want to look at a board and go, no, I can find the best director or the best editor even. Your editor might not be the right one for this. And a lot of the younger creatives just go, no, I saw him on iSpot and, he did the spot and I wanted to work with him, so it's kind of more simplified a lot of times.
And there's so much new talent every day, and that's part
Yeah.
of the fun of our job, is
Right.
finding new talent and going, oh my goodness, this is remarkable, I can't wait to share this.
Yeah, me too.
Just that opportunity to get that
Yeah,
new
me
talent
too.
in front of,
Yeah.
creatives.
Exactly.
So they
Back
can
to your
actually see.
question, though, I just had an experience where we didn't even have the opportunity to do multiple jobs. I had a director who was awarded a job and just knocked it out of the park. All the feedback was great. The spot was wonderful. And so 6 months later, the agency calls. It's a different producer. And we are told the next project for the same client is coming up. Would my director be available for this set of time? Love repeat business. There's nothing better in the world than repeat business. So yes, the wheels start rolling, and then the word comes, the team wants to look at some other directors. Have no idea what happened. But I guess there is a hunger sometimes to, well, okay, we know what that experience is about. Let's try someone else and see what we think.
Yeah, but that wave can come back up again, too.
That's
They have
what the
more
hope
experience with
is.
that next guy, you
This
know.
next guy's gonna fall on his
Yeah, then
face.
they go back to the one that succeeded for them.
Yeah, that's so
But
true.
you guys, it's getting close, I'm surreptitiously looking, we're getting close to 11:30. So do anybody else have any ideas or any conclusive inspirations from this? I can't believe I just said conclusive inspirations. Or thoughts, because it seems like to me, the takeaway would be, with the turnaround time being what it is, and with the lack of mentorship, that the fastest that we can come together from all parts and pieces of production in the beginning, the faster we can make everyone's job not easier but better. That we can do the best product we can do. Bring all the elements of production in the beginning gives us more time. That's my takeaway, with respect. That's my other takeaway.
Yeah.
And I think, one of my takeaways is typically account people, stay in your lane, don't really get involved, or, and I think as we get more and more younger people, building those relationships with the creatives and the production, just understanding how the process works, because you do have to educate your client, you have to hold their hand. So that makes you a more valuable account person. Doesn't mean you're going to be doing it all, but just to have the knowledge about it. So, having those screenings, I will always eat your cupcakes and drink your wine. But we encourage our, account people, if they're available, go look at it, because you never know, and that could inspire something in them. To have a creative idea when something comes across, or when we need to respond a different way. You never know what those reels do for people. Or we actually have a lot of account people that are transitioning over into production because they love it. And so it's just interesting to see that just how it's evolving. But I think the education part and the mentorship of, hey, come on, just know about it, be a better asset for your client.
I think that I'm going to be more active in asking the account people to be on conference calls when conference calls are scheduled, to say, can we have somebody on account to be in there?
I
If
think it's fair.
anything, to understand the brand.
Yep. I think that's a fair question.
That, or just at least getting a creative brief, and even
Yeah.
bid specs a lot of the times. Still not getting those as regularly as when we're being approached to bid
Right.
jobs.
And I think that's part of the time crunch. I think a lot of times there's a deadline before there's creative.
Right?
Yeah.
I know that.
Definitely. I think ultimately, with the time frame we're dealing with, communication is, more important than ever. And, producers who send me a thoughtful email with like, here's the job, here's the parameters, here's everything I know about it, is extremely helpful, because then, we can build on that. So it's, the producers who are just like, here's the board, get back to me with a bid, blah, 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 and, that's tough, because you're kind of shooting in the dark, and you really don't get any information. So, the more, email, or even better for me, phone calls, the more we can deliver something that's more in the ballpark of what you're looking for, so.
And help, and be helpful.
Yeah.
And
It-
just,
Yeah, I was gonna say, at every step along the way, we all want to do the best job we can. And so
Yes.
as much information, like, I can do a better job yeah, so, and I know sometimes it's like being made up on the fly, but, we all just want to do the best job we can, that's why we do what we do, we love
and we
it.
love our jobs.
Yeah.
We do. So you guys, my God, thank you so much. You're gonna hear that 14,000 more times from me. But this has been so great, and I'm gonna share it on YouTube, so stand by. And thank you to Thought Culture.
Yes.
I think department.
Yes.
Happy to have you.
And thank you, Ann, for putting
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.